Committee. I want to welcome invited guests, Roman Greer, head of golf, Don Howell, and Jeff Handler as our select board meeting members who will be the liaison to the golf committee. It's time for public comment. I know Mary Sullivan has requested. Yes. Yeah, you need.
It's a day for microphones for me. All right, I initially had on here something about the sound system because we had an issue last week at our Cranberry Valley Women's Golf Association welcome back cocktail party. However, today's sound system was good. So I really don't know what to ask you, Roman, because I'm not sure. Has something changed between last Tuesday and this Tuesday?
No. So was it the same remote system that has remote speakers on it?
Yeah, there were remote speakers, and the volume was terrible. Whereas today we used one that was hooked into, I think, the sound system inside of the restaurant, and it was perfect.
I heard it wonderfully from my office, yeah. So yeah, I'll double check on that. I'll double check. That's first I heard that you had a problem with the cocktail party. So let me look into it and see what was different today.
Okay, well, that's great. Thank you for doing that. Okay.
Mary, did that work outside? Did you notice that?
Ian was outside. Yeah, it seemed to be working. The microphone seemed to be working fabulously. I guess I should have introduced myself. I'm Mary Sullivan. I'm the president of the Cranberry Valley Women's Golf Association 18-holers. So we had a big event today. We had our member, and so we've 2 weeks in a row have used the sound system. So like I say, week 2 was fabulous. Okay, so now I have another maybe small question to ask you, or at least in terms of the number one, the maintenance and the course today was in phenomenal shape, okay, regardless of the fact that it had rained. I mean, we knew we were dealing with wet grounds. But because of the fact maintenance, and I don't know anything about the maintenance schedule, all I know is every time I play, somebody's out there mowing the lawn. So there's a lot of clippings out in the course. And so my question is that the only places that we really have brushes, to my knowledge, Roman, are at the clubhouse for our shoes.
Okay.
And my question is whether or not the course would consider putting some brushes, that would be installed that would be safe and not someone coming and walking off with these, stealing them from the course, but they would be, installed in cement, however that would be done, maybe near like some ball washers, so that periodically while you're out on the course, you have a place that you can kind of brush the bottoms of your shoes off, because they get really clumped up with grass. So just an idea.
Okay, great.
Okay.
I'll look into that one.
All right. So this is my next question for you, and this is my last question, is about the Chelsea system.
Yes.
So it was my understanding that last year, the Chelsea system, in the afternoons, we had an opportunity to play, I want to say, early in the season when we had sunset earlier, or maybe in reverse. Anyway, the time change was 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock, where you could sign up for 9 holes and have a half a point charged to you.
Yes.
So is that still in effect this year?
It sure is, and I think I know why you're probably asking about this, is we have an open maintenance ticket with Chelsea that in some cases it's operating properly, and some it's not, and some it's assigning a full point. So that's an ongoing fix right now. That we're aware of it, probably became aware of it about 2 weeks ago. We've been working with Chelsea to fix that one.
Okay, because I thought, and I did miss your email, myself personally, the last one that went out in terms of to the membership, and but there was an explanation there on there. If you wouldn't mind checking that explanation that you gave on there, because I didn't think it included the afternoon 9 sign up for 9, but if you could just double check that and see whether or not that's something that needs to go out to the membership.
And what do you mean by I didn't include that as an option?
I don't think you did, but I'm not 100% sure.
I know that was not meant to be all encompassing. I think what I directed everybody to the Chelsea documents that are on our website, and then I think I worded just tea time tips. I just listed some tips for tea times, not necessarily the full rule book.
Okay.
But I did refer everybody to Chelsea Explain document, which is on our website.
Yes.
And that, it should all be on there.
Okay.
I will double check.
And I didn't go
is-
back to, I did see that, and I did not go to the referring document. So if you could just check that, that would be awesome. And those were the only questions I had,
But
so
no,
thank you.
that is a work in progress, the half point. And every point where anybody brings it up, we are fixing the points for them. But I hope that won't be a problem going forward.
All right, great. Thank you, Roman.
Thank you, and I have that document, and it is on here.
Yeah, okay, good.
Thank you, Mary. I know that you received the minutes of the May 23rd, and I'm sure you noticed if you observed the video that it cut off after 43 minutes. So our minutes are incomplete. So I don't know if we want to just note that or how we want to proceed with that.
Well, if it's impossible to, Madam Chair, if I may, if it's impossible for us to reconstruct them, and I wasn't present, I was absent
It
that
is.
particular day, my recommendation would be, the minutes are incomplete due to a technical loss of video.
Right.
And at least we would make people aware of that.
Right.
And it would seem that that would at least clarify the record, as unfortunate as it is.
Right.
So maybe I would make a motion that we, prior to the conclusion, respectfully submitted, we indicate that due to the video feed being cut off, the minutes as constituted are incomplete. And we just admit that, because I don't know how else we can rectify it,
Okay.
unless there's someone else has an idea.
If there's any other way to do it.
Yeah.
Really, can't
I
remember.
don't, no votes were missed, or there was no real.
No business?
No business occurred, no,
Okay.
I don't believe so, right? Is that right? I don't think we had any
No.
votes taken.
No.
Don?
If I might, Roman was going down the road that I was going to go down. You're legally, at a minimum, responsible for making sure the motions and votes are cataloged. So if you did not do any motions or votes, all you need to do is make that notation with the statement, no further deliberations or votes were taken.
We voted to adjourn.
That's fine, but I'm saying,
Right.
business votes, like Roman was saying, if somebody wanted to approve something, or he had made a recommendation that you voted, you would have to make note of that, but other than that, your legal responsibility is dispensed with exactly what you just said.
Can I have a second on that motion? Thank you, Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
So with that, I would move we accept the minutes.
Thank you.
Just one other quick question on that.
Yeah.
Was there any way for us to have known
No,
that the video cut out? I mean, is there a signal that we can get from the desk that controls the video, so that if we, in the future, saw the green light turn red or something, we'd say, oh, hold on a minute, and we can see if we can rectify it?
I
think
think
in this room, it does turn green when it's not on and red, but the room we were in didn't
The
have
small
that.
room
it
does,
appeared
yeah, I
that
don't
we
remember
didn't
ever
even
seeing
know if
anything
it was
like that
still
either.
running. We were trying to turn it off, and we didn't know whether
I
it was.
checked with Caleb that records, and he said it was an issue with the server overheating, so it wasn't anything directly in our room, it was something in the basement, I believe, where the server overheated and it didn't, and the recording was lost.
okay.
Got it. Thank you.
Roman, do you want to do the director's report?
Sure, so if anybody would like to view the outline of my director's report, that is on the website, the golf committee website attached to the agenda. It's not a whole lot of information in it, but I'll go over it. So I've got a list of our recent and upcoming events. We had the Cranberry Valley member event, the Cape Cod Women's Golf League event, Harwich Chamber of Commerce event last week. And then just today, we had the women's 18-hole member, which was a big success. I think you saw all the decorations around the clubhouse. It's wonderful. Upcoming is the New England PGA Junior Tour, the Women's Association 9-hole Invitational, the Mass Golf Pub Links Qualifier, and Drive, Chip, and Putt event. And then just want to give some other updates. I did reach out among our database of annual pass holders for volunteers for the Drive Chin Putt. I had a wonderful turnout, 24 volunteers. I think I only need 3 or 4, so that was wonderful to see. I had great response, and I think it shows the continued support for all of the junior programs we run among the membership. We also had a trunk show about 2 weeks ago. There was a Women's Association event teamed up with our head pro, Dick Fagan, and that was a big success. We had over 30 attendees and over 30 items sold at that trunk show. That may actually, we'll evaluate that later in the year. That may actually alter some of our future plans. We may choose to do more business with trunk shows than actual inventory stock, because it was so successful. As far as the restaurant goes, they've been doing a great job. So I hired an electrician to upgrade the Ansel fire suppression system, rewire all existing electrical outlets and lighting, supply fans and supply air fans, and the system to de-energize the system during a fire event. So that was all required to upgrade our equipment in the kitchen to electrical. So we're working on an electrical upgrade there. It's specifically for an electric grill we're trying to upgrade. I'm working with the folks at Jake's, and they're requesting a Tuesday, Wednesday shutdown to when we can actually schedule that stuff, because Tuesday and Wednesday are by far their quietest days in there. So I'll let everybody know when we are going to shut down to do that upgrade, but that's upcoming. Then as far as annual pass sales, we're right on pace with where we were last year. We're actually 14 passes sold over last year as of yesterday. And when I looked at that, our categories have changed a little bit, because now we consider Chatham folks non-residents. So, when you bundle in all of the adult categories, it's exactly the same on June 12th as it was last year. The only increase really is in the junior category, where we have 12 new, we're plus 12. And the final thing I wanted to mention is the design project. We've had a lot of work going on with that, with Richard Mandel and the conservation director. This week we met on Monday. We're going to meet again on Thursday with the whole team, including like the planning director and the director of planning and the entire conservation team. Then we're going to do a site meeting on Friday, really talking about what our wetlands, where our 50-foot buffer is, where our 100-foot buffer is, with the architects, so we can really see what land is workable and what's not. And that'll affect the design concepts going forward. That's all I have.
Any questions?
Is there any thought to capping the non-resident? I mean, we're up to what, 1,170 members?
No, we're beyond that. So we're right around where we were last year. Right now, when you count all categories, including all the junior categories, the young adults, we are currently at 1,271. And it's right around where we were last year. Last year, at this time, we were at 1,257. We were not really going to sell any more at this point, except for basically the junior categories at this time of year. Because most people, most of the adult residents would have purchased by now. So from this point forward, we really only see sales in the junior and collegiate categories for summer residents.
Are you planning on giving us a comparison chart? You usually do year over year. I didn't know if you waited until a certain point to do that.
I can, well, yeah, sure, I can next meeting, sure.
Great.
Okay. The next thing, Roman, you don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting if you don't
Thanks,
want
Mark.
to.
I'll stay a little bit, but I appreciate that, thank you.
Okay. Steve Bellato, I have you next on the agenda.
Okay, thank you, Martha.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to, in the public meeting, because the issues came up during the last public meeting, apologize to the committee members, to the public. I made some comments at last meeting that I think really did bother some people. certainly, and I reached out to both Martha and Carol individually first, but I felt that I owed it to everybody else on the committee and the public, since it was at a public meeting, to apologize publicly. I was working off some incorrect and/or incomplete information that drove me to make some of the comments that I made, and that was totally inappropriate. And so, please, Madam Chairman, and the rest of the committee members, accept my apologies. I'll try to do better going forward, but I thought it was important, since it was in a public meeting, for me to not only apologize to Martha and Carol individually, but to also, in the public forum, apologize for last meeting.
Certainly, I accept
you
your
very-
apology.
As did I.
Steve.
Yes, you did.
Thank you very much, Steve.
And,
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying all of that. So tonight, we have two invited guests. Don Howell, who has been our liaison to the golf committee for a number of years, and has certainly been helpful as we go through what we perceive as a major transition of the golf committee, and how we can best do our job for the best interest of the town. And that's why we're here. We're not self-serving at all. Jeff, we welcome you, and anything that you can do to help us make the golf course what we feel it can be and is to this community. I would just like to, and I really thank Dawn for sort of helping me as we've been through this transition. But some of the things that we have been trying to deal with and define as a committee come down to particularly the charter of the town in regard to the golf committee. And I would just like to read the two statements that I feel have the most influence on this committee. And since the select board, I believe, is partially responsible for this, I think it's really important, if the committee is to do their job, that we need to understand what this means. 713-2, the committee shall recommend governing policies relating to the maintenance and operation of the municipal golf course for consideration by the Board of Selectmen. And Don, if you could help us clarify that, we'd appreciate it.
Absolutely, Mr. Howell. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I know that this has been daunting. I know that you were operating in a particular way, and for historic purposes, it was a golf commission, which is not the same as a golf committee, and you had contractual responsibilities and other things. So people who remember it going back that far it's not that their memory is faulty. They did have authorities like that, but once the charter got revised in 2008, the charge that you just read is operative. Now, there's two types of committees that are under the board, the select board. One, and I need you to understand this because it really gets the crux of the issue with you folks. One are the regulatory boards, the planning board, ZBA, Board of Health, Conservation Commission. The select board populates those, but they cannot supplement their judgment for the committees or boards. They're regulatory, they derive from state statutes. You have full authority within the statutes that you operate under. You don't have that. You are the other type of committee, which is an advisory committee to the select board. There are only two things that you really have to keep remembering, and that's where we came off the rails last year. Roman does not work for you at all. Roman works for administration. His day-to-day activities are governed by the town administrator. And so you're not to direct him that, Roman, on Thursday, we don't want you doing this, we want you doing that, because you can't do that. If you identify something that Roman's proposing, and again, another thing that went off the rails is you don't do business with Roman, in Roman's office with one or two or three of you and come back to the committee and say, we've resolved that. The committee operates as a committee. And Roman's here to answer whatever questions publicly you have. If there becomes a problem of consistency where Roman wants to build a new 36-hole course somewhere or change the operation radically, I know you seem to smile, or change the organization radically, hours of operation, fees, and you folks are not happy with that recommendation, you can't on your own overturn it, but you can vote to come in front of the select board that does have the jurisdiction over policy. And we don't run anything day to day either, thank God.
Yeah.
So the whole point is you've got a professional running this, and when it comes down to policies, he has to operate consistently with the policies, but the day-to-day activities that are in furtherance of those policies are governed downstairs, not here. So again, I know that it seemed like you had more authority before, and you did. But where you're at right now is you need to stay where you've been over the last few meetings. You look at what's going on. If you have issues over anything, bring them here so that everybody in real time, including the public, gets to see them. And then you vote. And if you vote to uphold what he's saying, then there's no issue at all. If you don't vote to uphold what he's saying, there is a second step because you don't have the authority on your own to countermand him. You do have the authority, however, to say, through Jeff, I want a meeting with the select board, can you get me on the agenda? And you can hash it out at that point. Say you don't want a particular tournament, you think it's disruptive, or you want to keep the membership somewhat capped. Those are major issues that you can get involved with, where everybody's got to stay in their own lane, though. And everybody needs to know what everybody else knows. So in real time, whatever you question, and I've said this before, you don't go to Roman's place, Roman comes here. Roman in public is asks, questions in real time, he answers them, and either you guys agree with him or you don't. And if you don't, then it's got to go that extra step because his day-to-day governance is from downstairs, but in the future, whatever it is that you're planning on doing has to be done in concert with the select board. You make recommendations to them, but you don't make final statements or issue policies on your own. It may be disappointing to some people, but it's still an extremely important process because we can't be everywhere and we're not in a position to run everything on the select board. So we have all these committees. There's been some talk about trying to focus them more about what's important and what's not, but I guarantee you there's going to be a golf committee because we have this operation that's sitting up the street from here, and it has to be done professionally. And I remind you again that your stakeholders are not just golfers. The townspeople decided to bond to build a golf course, so you're together as partners in this. The people who paid for it and the people who use it aren't necessarily exactly the same people, and you got to keep in mind what it is that you're doing and try to operate in the best interest of all parties.
Can I ask a theoretical question in that?
I thought I was getting as theoretical as you could possibly get.
And I'll pick a topic that is very safe because Roman is already in front of this and leading it. If we as a committee thought that an executive course, a short course made sense, and we asked Roman about it and he said, no, I don't think it makes sense, but would that be something then we would say, Jeff, we want to meet with you, but
With the select board. Just understand another thing that I left out. The liaison is exactly what the word means in
Yeah.
a dictionary.
Right.
We liaise. We don't
Link.
actually, we are not the fifth Beatle.
Right.
We
Yeah.
don't operate,
Wait a minute, I'm not the fifth Beatle?
no, so- well, that's all you know. So you're not in a position, to operate.
Yeah,
And we aren't individually. We convey. So if Jeff comes here and says, yeah, the select board's got a concern, and they want you to know, and you respond, he can bring it back. If it requires a secondary action where you say, we really feel strongly
yeah,
that, we're right and he's wrong, just hypothetically. That the next step has to be, because you're not a regulatory body, you have to go and ask Jeff to get put on an agenda so that the whole board, select board can consider what it is you're saying.
yep. Could we, I'm sorry,
No,
Jeff.
please.
Just, could we as a committee, through that type of process, could the board then enable us to work with a consultant? Or would consultants, just stick with that example of we want to do something at the course that the director of golf doesn't agree with, we think should. The Board of Selectmen says, oh, interesting idea. How would something like that get advanced?
Just the way I described it. And
But-
keep
but like-
in mind that a consultant too is quasi-bridging to operations.
And
So
that's
it
what
has to
I'm-
be
yeah.
consistent with whatever policies that you guys have implemented that you all agree to, or if not, that the select board has agreed to. And they have to be in furtherance. However, it's kind of like designing a camel. You don't want 6 or 7 of you being, going back and forth with a consultant saying, if we put this hole over here a little bit, I think we'd be happier.
No.
I know, but there have been times when that kind of stuff has happened.
Yep.
So you're looking at the grand scheme, and within that grand scheme, he'll hire a consultant through the procurement process, which you don't have influence over either. You
Right.
have
Yep.
influence over the work statement,
Yep.
Right,
do not have influence over the process.
right.
Is there a set of policies in place for golf that we should be aware of, that we're responsible for?
Jeff has that answer.
Well, I'm gonna, so many good questions and potential scenarios that could happen. And I think my colleague here has done a fantastic job with the broad strokes, and that's about where I'm gonna be as well, 30,000 feet, as I am the liaison to the golf committee. And I would just urge you, if there's a question, if there's a procedural question, operative, call me and ask me. That way, the procedure stays in place. And if I might add, and correct me if I'm wrong, because also I'm learning as well, I'm a freshman, we do not have direct influence, the select board does not have direct influence over Roman either.
Right,
That would be the town administrator. So if we have something we want to convey to Roman, who is a gem and does a phenomenal job, I've known him for a long time, our procedure is to go by way of town administrator to inform him or her of our interest of talking to Roman. So to keep things neat and clean, it would be, I think, in all of our best interest and the best interest of the townspeople, which is exactly, I think, the best point you've made so far of all your points is, we're all here to take care of absolutely every single person in the town of Harwich, whether it's the golf committee, the water, we're here to serve everyone. And to keep it neat and clean, bring whatever questions you have to me. If I can answer it right on the spot, I certainly will. If I can't, I will find the answer and which procedure we all should take to make sure that this committee's voice is this everybody here? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so 7. So all 7 of you come together and create a voice and a message, and that's the message I will bring back to the select board. And I view myself as a bi-directional conduit. I want to hear everything you have to say so that I can represent the committee to the board. And then the 5 people on the board will weigh in, and then I will come back to this committee and be the conduit in the reverse fashion, let you know what the board feels. Then if I have to speak to Roman, I go through the TA. So I think that would be the best procedure for things to work efficiently, smoothly, and as Don said, to stay in all of our lanes, because we all have a lane. It's important that we stay there.
Steve?
Would there be a mechanism for when we as a committee vote on an issue, after hearing recommendations from Roman, in the rare cases, because I'll bet you it's less than 20%, if that, significantly less than 20%, the committee typically agrees wholeheartedly with Roman's recommendations, and our voting record would show that. But in the case of Roman suggests A, the committee votes, no, we think it should be B, is there a way for us to build a communication stream, short of picking up the phone to call you, that says, hey, here's an exception. Roman thought A, the committee voted B, we're not the deciding factor, but it would seem to me that it could be very good information for the select board to hear that, oh, we have a discrepancy here,
Sure.
where the hierarchy of the golf course, Roman and the town administrator, right now are thinking A, the golf committee voted 6-1 for B. And, but again, the select board is the final deciding factor in working in conjunction with the TA. But if we could build that mechanism, just so that,
Sure.
and then a follow-on to that could be, oh yes, this was discussed at the select board meeting, and the select board voted 5-0
Sure.
to follow the recommendation of Roman and the TA. Just as a courtesy back to
Right.
the golf committee members that said, we were heard, that the governing body made a decision, and they were kind enough to tell us what their decision was.
Let me address that if I may, and then absolutely, and then I think you, so at 100%, I hear what you're saying, I respect what you're saying, and as I've been taught, the chair and I will have those discussions. Your committee feels X, he feels Y. If Madam Chair wants to, feels it reaches the level of select board involvement, absolutely pick up the phone, email me, both, request to meet with me. I'm on board for being part of this committee 100%. I want you to be heard, and you can bet that you will get updates as I get them over the course of the next few weeks. And I hope that answers the question. To answer your question as well about policies, I don't know. I don't know if there's a formal list of policies, and I'm not even sure where you're going with the question of which policies, because as I'm on a board of another golf course, I know that we have general policies, but not specific policies, and I want to make sure I answer your question correctly, and maybe we can talk about that after.
Okay.
Thank you. Did you want to add, or?
If I might, Carol, just further, what he's saying is true, but further to that, neither he nor I are liaisons to you individually.
Right.
You
That was the
operate-
question I
You
wanted to
operate as a
ask.
corporate body,
Right.
and sometimes some of you will win your point, and sometimes some of you will lose your point. To the extent that you take a vote, and policy is a broad thing, because work statements are policy ultimately, because they translate into how the golf course operates in what manner. The obligation we have is we don't speak for our board either. We can bring something back, and the select board can vote about what it feels corporately that we want to do and get back to you. So it's no one individual person that does that, and the only way that that could possibly work without total chaos is not all 7 of you picking up the phone at various times so that Jeff's got 3 of you on hold. That works through the chair by the expressed vote of the golf committee.
Right.
So if you're unhappy, I mean, we went through a period this past year of that,
Right.
and we resolved it. You're at the point now, that's what I said at the meeting before last. You're at the beginning of a whole new system, and it's working. And I had every faith that it would work, but just as it goes forward, Jeff has got your best interests in mind. He can't speak for the select board any more than I could. And every one of you individually can't speak for the golf committee likewise, unless there's a vote that backs that up. So there's a process for everything. Getting Roman to come here instead of having 2 or 3 of you haphazardly going out to his office and say, so Roman, I know we have a committee meeting next week, but I want you to do so-and-so. That's gone away, and that had to go away because you guys don't have that kind of influence on Roman. He's got a day-to-day job.
That has gone away.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's, to be honest with you, I'm optimistic. I think things are going well. Jeff knows, about the course, the committee. He knows more about golfing than I know. And it seems to be working well. And what you have to do is hash out what the majority opinion is of yours, and I think Steve's probably right. I think it's probably more like 10% or less.
Oh, I think so.
That, for the most part, from what I can see, you guys have all operate that way. We hit a rough spot, and I'm going to get specific about the contract work statements and what was going on, mainly because the process I'm just describing that Jeff just described was not being utilized. Mm-hmm. There was a subcommittee. There were all the some of you knew some things, some of you didn't know some things, and that can't work. Whenever you get to the point where you're at odds, Martha picks up the phone, talks to Jeff. Jeff, if he can't answer it directly, he'll say, I'll have to get you on the agenda of the Board of Select Board, and then wherever we all fall is where we fall. And again, he's right. I'm not going out to the course. He's not going out to the course to say, Roman, I think you should put the carts over there, not over here. We don't operate. We operate through the town administrator also. So there's year-round personnel that are hired to do certain things, and that's how they operate. And he doesn't get a performance appraisal from you folks. And I think he'll be happier too, because it's not like you're listening to 7 different voices telling you 7 different things. And like, I don't know how to reconcile all this. He doesn't have to. You reconcile it because 6-1 you voted, and that's what you're going to do.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think what we will have, and the one frustrating point, and it is the rare occasion where we might disagree with Roman, is we might vote not in favor of his choice. What we didn't have, and I think we would have, whether it was under your leadership or, is we had no way of conveying the reason why we chose not to. And that, in my opinion, needs to get to the board. Because in a last vote, all you knew was we didn't agree. And then you choose who you like best that night. That's what it felt like, rather than the issue and why. Mm-hmm. So I have great confidence that communication will take place in the future. But it's real important to us because we do spend a lot of time thinking about which position we're going to take. And if it is not in agreement with Roman, it would have to be for a reason that you might want to know about.
Mm-hmm. May I, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Spot on. And as the committee votes, chair of the committee will bring to me, and I will hear it, and we will discuss it. I will gather as much information about the subject as I can. I'll bring it to my board, and you will hear back. I mean, that is, I don't like the future worry, 'cause my wife says at home I future worry. I'm trying really hard to not future worry in this new chair that I found myself in. And I can only say that if I'm not in attendance at your meetings, I will watch them. And to your point, Steve, if there was a vote that was not agreed upon between Roman and the committee, I'll probably already know it before Madam Chair brings it to my attention. I will have watched the meeting. If I hadn't watched the meeting and you bring a concern to me, I'm going to go and watch the meeting, because that would be the first way to make sure that I get it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And I'm just going to do as much discovery as I can Because it's important, not, as I said, not just to our committee or to Don or I, the select board, but to the entire community of Harwich.
I have one more point, and that is the actual verbiage in the charter itself. I'm not quite sure I have ever read anything quite so vague. And in particular, so we're talking about policies relating to maintenance and operations of the municipal golf course for consideration. But we really still don't know what policies really mean to us. What can we engage in? Rates and fees? Do contracts, changes that are occurring on the golf course that rates and that may affect the budget itself? Is that something that we engage in? We always have, but do we continue doing that? And then there's another paragraph that I don't know that it's a complete sentence, and it involves the director of golf operations or employee having the general powers of supervision of the golf course shall, under the day-to-day supervision of the town administrator, within the scope of the general policy and direction established by the golf committee. That's not really a complete sentence. We needed to change a word, or there's a verb lacking in that sentence. But, okay, so
This is yours.
I think we really need to understand that.
First of all, Madam Chair?
Yes.
It's written vague because it has to fit all circumstances. The operation means that Sean or Roman can't come and say, we're only going to run 9 holes now. Or the Chatham people being considered to be quasi-residents as opposed to non-residents. Anything generally fits that. The thing that you have to understand, and I'm not sure, I think that last sentence is inarticulate. You can't set that unilaterally. The general policies, they have to be in concert with a select board. I might point out to you that you don't set the rates. He doesn't set the rates. They come in front of the select board to be voted, to be approved as rates. That's how the process works. Mm-hmm. While I still have your attention, I just want to say something that in support of Jeff here, because I have the same basic feeling. You did go through a rough spot. I recognize that, and I've tried to be here for you. In general, I wouldn't put anybody on a committee, and I'm sure Jeff wouldn't either, who wasn't an adult, who wasn't capable of independent thought. You don't need us hovering in general to tell you what you need to do. So he may not come to every meeting. I didn't come to every meeting either, because as adults, we have to trust your judgment. Unless you get into some sort of dilemma that I just described and you want to ask Jeff, can I get in front of the whole select board to tell them something? Generally, we're not hovering here to make you feel like, okay, they're watching us. We're here to help bring information to you and from you, but not to actually deliberate with you, if that makes any sense to you.
Yeah.
So, you were all selected because we were impressed that you're capable of making judgments that are in the best interest of the town, and we're not going to substitute our judgment for yours. So the
We're not
liaison doesn't do.
participatory.
Yeah, the liaisons are here to hear and to tell you what the big board felt when he brought it to them. That's it. We're not supposed to substitute our judgment for yours.
I'm very excited for that, so please.
I think that as I listen and I reflect on the years that I have spent on this committee, I'm probably the longest person who is, besides my invited guest, that I think the problem was that the committee was not working as a committee. We never realized, we would get here at a meeting and we would discuss major concerns that we had, and I'm sure the administration had, about the running of the golf course and what our vision was. But we were never told that we could discuss these issues, vote on them, and if there were conflicts, that we could go to a select person, or the select board and share that. In 10 years, I've never gone in front of a select board committee to
Now's your
talk
chance.
about the issues
That's because Jeff and I
that
were
were so important.
Yeah.
And I think, and I'm going to say this, there were a lot of issues that we had in the last 2 years. And because of the mismanagement of the committee, they were tabled and taken away from us and put on the town administrator's desk. And I feel, hopefully, as a committee, that we can feel free to bring these issues up again and talk about them in the best interest of the course.
That's
pretty much what we're saying.
exactly what I'm saying.
Thank you.
And Don, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm also here to help you with the procedures. So if there's a question about how your committee should function, because a topic comes up that's a little different. And Madam Chair, if you'd like to call and ask me how I feel the committee would best handle that, I'm happy to help you with that. And I believe that's within my,
Yeah, although, because you weren't here you weren't here for this.
okay.
I caution you that the use of subcommittees is a very dangerous thing.
Absolutely.
Because they still fall under the open meeting law.
Right.
They have to be posted, and you have to bring back whatever the outcomes are back to the whole committee. And if that doesn't happen, they're not functioning properly.
Well, I really feel that this is something that's evolving with this group of committee people. And
Martha, just not to interrupt you, you're playing with fire if you don't do what I suggested.
Right.
Because at a certain point in time, if you have a subcommittee visiting Roman and there are no minutes,
right,
then you're violating the open meeting law because you're not doing your work in public
Right.
anymore. I mean, I don't even understand, because the biggest two questions I get in any committee is, what do we have to do to get an executive session? Well, almost nothing qualifies at your level. And it's hard for me to see why a subcommittee would be established by you folks either. But the size of this,
Right.
it's really impossible for me to understand. It was like, yeah, it was too unwieldy to talk to all the other 6 people. We have to go and send 3 of them out to Roman's office where nobody knows what was being said.
right.
Stay out of that and you'll be in much better shape.
I think there are core values I think we would all like to embrace going forward. And the key value to me is transparency. And I will say this. So in the past, we might have had leadership that wasn't completely transparent. So in a sense, any one of us who might end up being the chair, who has the opportunity to speak with you, Jeff, privately, or with Roman privately, needs to share that with the rest of the committee. And also, the committee's needs need to be taken by the chair to you, Jeff, or to you, Roman, if we so desire. So we need to feel confident that if we're going to operate like a committee, we have to communicate like a committee. We have to trust one another. We have to, a couple of other things that I think need to happen is inclusion. So we weren't including in the past, and we, I think, all desire to do that today. And that includes the general public and listening to them and bringing their issues to each other, things that we hear that maybe need to be discussed with our group. We talked about last week, for example, emails, having an email address for the committee. I think that's a good idea. I don't know whether we can do it.
It's only a good idea if only one person has access to it, because you can serial deliberate.
Well, it could be a committee, it could be to a committee, it could be a committee address.
It's generally done with the access by the chair when that happens, because ultimately you have to be able to track these things, and if it turns out that one day he's posting to an email, and then the next day she's getting it, and then coming back
I
to this.
didn't mean that, Don. I meant that it was a general address.gov.
But if you all have access to it, you are capable
Oh,
of
well, yeah,
serial
and that's fine, but
deliberating
it-
outside of a meeting.
But given the chair will be transparent, it's
Yeah.
not an issue.
No, but I didn't want anybody to misunderstand that. If you all can individually get to it and then you all individually call each other, then you're operating outside of the open meeting law.
Right.
I have a question. I agree very much with what Carol just said. I think transparency is an absolute key in gathering information. Due to the fact that we are committee members, do we lose any of our rights, for lack of a better term, to garner information that, as a taxpayer in the town, we would have a right to request? That are we restricted in that right because we're a selected person on a committee?
No, but you are prohibited from going in front of another a body, like the Chamber of Commerce, and saying, well, this is what I feel. Because you don't have any feelings by yourself. If you're on a committee, you only have the committee's feelings, whatever those are voted as.
Even if you recused yourself, if you said,
You can't.
hello,
recuse-
hello, Chamber of Commerce, understand I am a member of the golf committee, but I am not speaking on behalf
Nope.
of the golf committee.
You surrender that.
So we surrender those rights.
Yes.
If you recuse yourself for a period of time, do you gain back those rights during? So unless you
Leave the
resign
committee.
from the committee,
At which point you can say anything you like.
Right,
okay?
right.
What about the right to review contracts as it pertains to the golf operation?
Again, that could fit under policy, but it has to be done here. And I'm trying very hard to get this message across to everybody. Today's day one of the future. I get how we're going over some things that didn't work, but now that you know how they should work, rather than focusing back, I don't expect for a subcommittee to get involved with something with Roman and then get as far as an RFP that half of you don't know about, because if you operate in the manner we've just discussed, that can't happen. It won't happen. So you won't have the need to say, wait, the thing went out to bid and this is all wrong. You're not going to have that position, because before something gets sent in as a work statement to get sent down to Megan to be put into a contract, you will see it as a concept from Roman. Here's what I'm trying to do. And does that work statement actually get you where I want to go? That's a policy issue. But once it gets into the hopper, it becomes a very, very, very legal issue, because the contracts, there's ramifications of all the clauses. If you start changing quantities, quality, delivery times, almost anything, you're changing the scope of a contract, you guys don't have that right.
I think my question was also what right, if Roman is going to submit a contract, and do we have the right to know about it?
Yeah, and he's not gonna do that. I'm pretty sure that you and I have discussed this. You're just not gonna slip a document under the door downstairs without any of you guys knowing about it. And that's not how I expect anything to work. There shouldn't be little camps within the,
No vacuum.
yeah, no vacuum.
No
There
vacuum.
shouldn't be any clusters of these two feel this way and those three feel that way. He's gonna operate here, not in his office. And whatever you guys all are asking, you're gonna get real-time answers to. And that's before the contract gets formulated. I mean, what happened is it seemed like everything was out of sequence by the time I got into this. It just seemed all off. And if you follow the blueprint that Jeff just described and what I was describing, you're not gonna have that problem. It's gonna evolve organically out of an idea that one of you have or Roman has, and then it's going to be put on the paper, you look at it, and you either agree with them or don't, and then that whole process kicks in again.
And if I may, if there's something that a committee member would like to have put on the agenda, obviously you would bring it to the chair, and the chair would then put it on the agenda if so moved, and then it's notified to the town, and it's all about procedure. It's all about procedure, yeah.
So-
And unfortunately, I have to go to the next meeting in 5 minutes, so
Just
please.
real quick,
Yeah,
to
no.
follow up on that. If a committee member would like something on the agenda, submits it to the chair, and the chair decides, now that's not agenda worthy, and it doesn't make it to the agenda, is there any recourse to that committee member to say, no, this is really pretty important to me, I think it's an item that really needs to be discussed
Do you mean
amongst all
recourse?
7 members?
Do you mean recourse for me as the liaison to come and weigh in on that?
No, but I'm saying,
You'd have to.
just use case example. I submitted an agenda item to
Sure.
Martha. Martha looks at it, she goes, that's a
The
bunch
chair's
of
not the
baloney. We don't need to talk about that, and she doesn't put it on the agenda. And yet, I feel very strongly about it. Do I have a recourse to say, please, Madam Chairwoman, I really do want that on the agenda?
Dave,
or-
I don't think you're gonna need recourse. The way this is operating right now, Martha doesn't view herself as a goaltender, and I don't either. Pretty much every committee is set up so that everybody's equal, and the chair is not twice as equal. The chair is equal. They're here to coordinate the meeting, and if it's not like, well, I need 3 people to sign up on this thing, or we can't put it as an agenda item. The expectation is that normally an agenda item would be put on. Doesn't have to be in the next meeting, by the way. I mean, the
Could be
chair
in a
may
future
decide
one.
that we're too cluttered next meeting.
Yep.
But it'll be put on, and you'll rather quickly find out whether you're the outlier or whether there's a majority opinion that you're expressing the whole committee weighs in on. Again, I don't like going back to the past. I know that there have been times where, geez, I really wish I could have this as a discussion, and it never happened, but that's not the way it's going to work in the future. Martha will collect this, and I believe that you saw that. She did agenda building for this meeting in the first place. She invited agenda items, and that's the way you're probably going to wind up operating for good, because that's what you need to do.
I have a whole lot of other practical questions, which you have to leave. And I don't know if we should continue this discussion briefly in our next meeting, but we do a lot of things. We have meetings that are short and long-term strategic planning. Should we continue doing
That's still policy, yeah.
like that?
Yep.
Operational
What
budgets?
What isn't is, like I said, Roman, I saw you at 2:00 this afternoon and you were doing so-and-so, and I don't want you doing that again at 2. I want you doing it at 10. You don't do that. You're not a supervisor.
No, but we do also present Roman with recommendations of process improvement,
Yeah,
and we can continue doing,
yeah.
and he can choose to.
But even if Roman agrees, just bear in mind that you don't have the underlying authority on your own to tell him you must, because you're advisory to the select board. I mean, so generally, you're still gonna have to understand, I answer to a higher power. I hate saying that about myself. You answer to a higher power, you're advisory. That's why I said that there are regulatory committees and your advisory committees and your advisory committee.
And if I may, before I have to go, I think any topic that is operational, maintenance, anything to do with the golf course that's not a directive to Roman, right?
Yeah.
That'd be the way to put
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it's universal stuff.
Would be fair game for you all as committee members to deliberate and discuss. Come to a consensus, and if that consensus is positive and it looks like it can move forward, talk to Roman about it. If you don't like Roman's answer, then the vote has been taken. Madam Chair, you can call me and say, here's what we've been discussing. The committee is in favor. Roman may not be. And here's why we're in favor of this. Those are the 3 steps.
Perfect.
What I think maybe you might be getting at is you don't want to waste your time talking about things that aren't in your purview or your ability to make changes or such. I don't, as a golfer and a person who's been on a board of a golf course for the last 9 years, there really isn't much that you all could come up with, again, other than a directive to Roman, that wouldn't be something that you should spend a little time discussing. But if you have questions on whether or not you're going down the right road or the wrong road, or if you should or you shouldn't be, direct your question to Madam Chair. Madam Chair can contact me and we'll sort it out, you and I, in real time, and you can bring it back to your committee. I think keeping it, I like things simple, neat, and packaged up. Then our communication will be clean and crisp. Your communication from our communication will be clean and crisp. And if I have to go to the select board, I can cleanly and crisply bring your views and your wants and what you're looking for to the board. And then I'll come back and let you know what they said. As a 5-person board, we'll weigh it, we all look right, we all look left, we kind of do it all together. So that, unfortunately, is it for me. You'll hear more from me. I will contact you by way of email so that you have my contact information.
Great.
And as Dawn said, I don't need to be here all the time, but I can certainly be here anytime you need me to be, or anytime you want to have a conversation, Madam Chair. I'm here for the committee,
Great.
and I'm here for the town of Harwich.
Thank you, Jeff.
I'm here for
Thank
you
you
as
very
well, in whatever capacity I can be. Thank you.
And as you depart, I just want to say this in front of you. That is the way it has largely been working these last few months. That is exactly what you've been doing. The chair has communicated to me when there is concern on the committee. It is working like that. Keep doing what you're doing.
I hope you're out of here in 3-4 hours.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Nice to meet all of you.
Thank you, Jeff.
luck.
I'm on the back stretch right now.
Thank you. Yes, Steve.
One of the key points that I agree very strongly with Carol made is transparency. When can we get transparency on the budget? There's
The budget.
and even more so, just by way of example, in the town report, it shows us what we had for expenses, for lack of a better term, down to the point of an interfund transfer that ranges from $325,000 and change in 2020 to $574 and change, $574,000 and change in 2021, $515 and change in 2022. What makes up interfund transfers?
Why did I?
Please.
This is a perfect example
no
of what I
idea.
was saying to you before, because I'm the outlier on my board.
Okay?
I hate, and I think Roman's heard me say this, I hate revolving funds. I just hate them. I mean, they're great if you have them there for occasional use for things that you can't possibly figure out in October that you might need in July of the next year. The problem is that you have just an immense, enormous revolving fund, and interfund transfers could be almost anything, and they're not effectuated through the select board. They're done through administration.
I think, Don, what Steve's talking about is like what we consider our budgetary indirect costs, that at the end of the fiscal year, you know, what you normally call a profit margin, or is it usually,
It's retained
usually
earnings,
equals zero.
actually.
It all comes down to equal zero at the end after the transfer, right?
Yes, which means, but again, you know, it's not an arbitrary number.
No, it's a specific number.
And-
I
and
couldn't
so-
possibly tell you.
So there had to be individual line items
Yeah.
that generated that number. I would love to see what those individual line items were.
You're making my case about why I hate revolving funds, because if this were appropriated funds, then we would have all of that laid out, and it would be in a budget that town meeting would vote on.
But regardless of that,
Operationally, operationally, when money comes out of that fund, the select board doesn't get to see it and vote on it.
and I understand that. But what I'm asking, and I'm not asking for that per se, what I'm asking for is, somebody show me the math, the line items.
I think that's a reasonable request. If you guys want that as a committee, then I'm pretty sure Jeff can approach the town administrator and get that for you.
Okay.
But one thing I'd clarify, Don, I think Steve, you're not talking about revolving funds, though. You're talking about our operating budget, right?
I'm talking about on page 278 of the annual town report.
You forgive me, I didn't memorize it.
No, I'm reading it. Trust me that I'm reading to you what it says. I mean, it shows golf, S&W, which is salary and wages, obviously.
That's our operating budget, yeah.
Golf expense, golf capital outlay, that has a subtotal. Then it has golf IMA MSRD. I don't know exactly what that is,
Your
but it's not a
municipal
lot.
agreement, yeah.
It's only 31K. Electricity, pretty straightforward, was 66K. But then inter-fund transfers, again, in 2022, was over $500,000. In 2021, fiscal 2021, it was even higher than that. And in fiscal 2020, it was only $325,000.
We are going to get so into the weeds, I'm going to need a miner's helmet here in a few minutes. Part of what's going on is on appropriated funds within the state of Massachusetts, appropriations are made to specific line items. He can't take a salary and wage excess and put it over here for equipment. He doesn't have the authority to do that.
That's fine.
So every single time that you have money left in a spot and you really could use it over here, Finance Committee has to look at it, and that has to be an interfund transfer in order for it to be legal, because otherwise you have an excess here and a deficiency there.
I have no problems whatsoever with the fiscal management. What I have a problem with is that,
We can't describe what it is.
yes, and
I
yet.
get it.
And because that would help us tremendously when, for instance, we talk about rates and fees. Knowing that we're not the deciding factor, we have a meeting, we discuss it, Roman makes his recommendation. Sometimes, more times than not, we agree with him. Sometimes we don't. The ultimate decision is the select board. But for us to have a reasonable, intelligent meeting about rates and fees without understanding the details of where the money that has been brought in is going out to is a folly. I mean,
Might I
and
suggest
that's
that-
all I'm asking.
Might I suggest that the overall question that you folks want to ask is, before you ask anything else, is that interfund transfer external to the golf operation, or is it within the golf operation going from one line item area to another line item area? Because that's the most important thing you want to know. Is there money being taken from you guys to operate some other facility that has nothing to do with golf? And that's probably the first thing you'd want to know.
Yes.
I don't have the answer. I'm sure Jeff can get you the answer.
Okay.
And it's a legitimate question. My suspicion is, though, it's a reallocation of budget money so that everything stays non-deficient.
Our direct expenses don't include, the retirement, post-employment benefits.
Okay.
So that's all applied after the fact. And so I think that's the money Steve's talking about, right? Not the direct
again,
budget. It's the transfer.
it's in the report as
Transfer.
interfund
Yeah,
transfers.
so I've got no hand, I have no hand on that
And the
transfer.
percentage varies widely, which is the other reason why, if we got the itemization, we could say, oh, geez, it went up by 35% because the contribution to the retirement fund for the employees in the town went up 35%. Wouldn't that be wonderful for you? Although you don't even get paid, you're just a nutty volunteer like us. But you know what I'm saying? We could understand it all, but it's.
My wife has pointed that out before you.
Yeah. For whatever it's worth, I'm a math bigot. I love doing math, and it just mathematically doesn't make sense that it goes up and down, and it magically makes the total of expenses out for golf match up to the income for golf. So, and if I see the itemization, I could be, that supposition of mine could be proven totally incorrect. But for somebody that really does love numbers to say, oh, that's just coincidence, show me the details. And if it is, I salute the flag and we move forward. But
We forgive you because you actually deal in scorecards, so I know you like numbers. It's fine, and I get what you're saying. I have the same misgivings myself sometimes because I can read spreadsheets really well.
Yeah.
And, but Roman's right. I'm not even sure Roman knows exactly why all of the transfers are made.
No, I have a great control with what's under my jurisdiction. But yeah, at the end of the day, there's our operating budget, and then there's our revenues brought in, and there's that gap in the middle. And we try to keep. I know the gap encapsulates a lot of important stuff, the post-employment benefits, in property insurance, such like that. But I understand what Steve's saying also is at the end of the day, the finance director or whoever it is, makes it zero, makes it all equal. And your frustration is whether it's an up year or a down year, it's always going to equal zero, right?
yeah.
Yeah. And I can't explain it, but I know the why. I know we call it the indirect costs. It's just our indirect costs.
Oh, and just as a follow-up, I get questioned all the time. When I play fairly frequently, I love Cranberry Valley. It's gorgeous. Sean and you are doing a fabulous job as always. But people hear that I'm on the golf committee and they'll say, yeah, how much is it costing us? How much is it costing the town to have this golf course? And I said, we don't really know.
I believe it's a net contributor to the town.
I think
not
it
the
is
other
too,
way.
but there are perceptions, certainly by non-golfers in this town, that it's not, that it's a fiscal burden to the town. And all I'm saying is, again, with waving the transparency flag, if it's a net cost to the town, great. We should know that. We should be honest about it. We should tell people that. And we should probably work hard to try to figure out how to bridge that gap when we talk about rates and fees, et cetera. So it isn't a burden on the non-golfing taxpayers in this town. But if the opposite is true, we should be able to tout that as well and say, hey, look, we cover all of the costs of the golf course and we return $100,000 a year to the school department or whatever. It's just another great reason why it's a fabulous asset of the town, whether you play golf or not. But to say, I don't know, I'm on the golf committee and I have no idea, is just...
These are my final sage words to you folks then. It's not on the agenda, so you can't vote right now because you need to be put the public on notice of things that might be discussed and voted upon. But this is an excellent opportunity for you to ask the chair to put it on a future agenda. You pre-discuss this, so you probably can get a vote for rather quickly and send it over to us, because I think it's a legitimate question.
Okay.
It would form the basis upon which you'd operate, but some of it, as Roman says, is somewhat arbitrary. I mean, yeah, on the balance sheet of Harwich, you guys have this much left over, so an interfund transfer to cover overtime in the fire department, for instance, is up for grabs because you're a municipal operation. So I don't know the answer. We could sit here for another 3 hours and
Okay.
we still wouldn't know
Thank
the
you.
answer.
It also affects our recommendations to you on rates and fees.
Yep, absolutely. And that's why I started up front by saying, remember who your stakeholders are. It's not just golfers. It's everybody, because they do have an interest in saying, you know, that golf operation, I never golf, but what are you guys, why are you guys sucking money out of the town when the schools could use more? And it's a discussion that has no basis unless you got numbers.
That's right.
So I get it, it's legitimate. I'm sure that Martha's hearing this and we'll put it on an agenda, and that's the way this should operate.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Don while we have him
I'm
right
out of answers
here?
anyway, so I mean,
I think the key takeaway from me, and this has been very, very enlightening, at least for me.
Yeah, for all of
is,
us.
is that when we have further discussions at further meetings, clearly, towards the end of the discussion, we throw it open to a vote. Should this be taken to the select board?
Right,
the agenda has to have that on it, and my
Right.
recommendation for you is that every single thing that you could possibly put on there as a statement should say, for discussion and possible vote. Because you don't have to vote,
great,
but you can't vote unless it says that.
yeah. Oh,
No, because I know for one thing, one of the most enlightening things to me when I go to the town meeting, in the pamphlet that they give you, is besides a descriptor of all of the warrant items, it shows you what the select board had previously voted on. It shows you what the finance committee had their previous vote, or the planning committee, and it's really helpful information to know that, geez, the finance committee voted no on this, but the select board voted yes. Okay, I need to really pay attention to the pros and cons of this, because we've got two bodies with the same goals.
That's why the process is so important. That's why Martha was saying it wasn't working well last year, because when you break off and you have subcommittee meetings and everything, I don't know what they said. You don't know what they said, and I don't know whether anybody took a vote on anything at all. So if you operate within the confines of what we discussed here today, and you have been, by the way, you're not going to get in any trouble. You just say, and by the way, you're not going to get angry at each other either, because the biggest thing
Right.
that I saw on this committee over this past year initially was, why can't I ever get hurt? And everybody had a particular avenue that they were pursuing, that I didn't get told about this, and I didn't get told about that. You were asking that question a few months ago already. If you do the process the way it's supposed to be done, none of that happens, and nobody starts being suspicious of anybody else on the committee either, because you operate as a body, not as individuals. I have a great faith in everybody here, and I have great faith in the overall participation of all of our committees. This town would fail without the volunteers on all our committees. I mean, we rely on everybody to be deeper into the issues than we could possibly get ourselves, because there's just too much sprawling government. We're at the point of a $70-something million budget now. So we need you guys to ask questions, but it has to be done in a coherent way and together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I just want to say I appreciated being in front of you guys this past year, some of you for very little time and others of you for the whole year. You got a really good committee going, and just start valuing your strengths and working with each other to minimize whatever weaknesses you might have individually, and you'll be fine. My experience here is that you're all capable and you're all smart, and things are going to be really going well this year. Trust me.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you.
Shall we,
Could I ask just
oh,
one question?
sure.
Roman, at the last meeting, we discussed like benchmark ideas to help frame in the long-term budget that you shared. Could we bring that to the next meeting? Is that possible? Some of the, how you think about, how you look at chunks of spending, if you will, or like the timing on updating major parts of the course and.
Sure. You mean it's a basis like that document we had last time?
So the
Okay.
document kind of showed the dollars, if you will, the items that are, that either were appropriated or you're proposing in the future. But we talked about how you could help educate us as a committee to better understand, like, have we overinvested in certain areas or underinvested? So that as we're thinking about things to all work together on and possibly bring forward major appropriations, we have that better understanding. So like, you know, irrigation, sand traps, whatever it might be. How do you as a golf professional think about that? Like we need to invest about this much per year, or we need to invest in that every 5 years or 3 years, just so that we can look at the past and have a sense of then this is an important asset for the town, as we've talked about here. If the town's budget's 70 and we're earning 2, I mean, we're covering 3% of the town's costs somewhere. So it's really important we keep this going and healthy. So it's just ideas like that so that we can be better educated on.
Okay. Yeah, let me come up with something. I'm not sure. Let me put something together, and maybe next meeting, anything I'm missing, we can add into it. How about we start next meeting with ideas?
That
right?
sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All
I
right, great.
appreciate that.
Because I honestly, if I had the document, I'd share it. I don't, so I'd have to
Yeah.
start from scratch.
Got it.
And I can start with something.
Okay. And if we have any ideas, we'll funnel them to Martha and she can get them to you. Good. Thank you. Thank you.
Dawn, I don't think it was explicitly said. Are you moving out of the liaison role and Jeff is coming into it?
Yes, yeah.
Then I would like to publicly, and put it in the minutes, thank Don for his time as a liaison to the golf committee. He spent a great deal of time and effort
He's been
helping
very,
educate us and getting us back on the right track.
It was a worthwhile
And-
endeavor, Steve.
But it was a lot of time and effort for somebody that is already volunteering for the good of the town. So I think we as a committee owe him
We certainly
a big thank you and gratitude.
thank you, Don.
It may be the last time all year I hear anybody applaud for stuff I do as a citizen.
Shall somebody recommend that we adjourn?
So moved.
Oh, just before we move on with that, just remember that next month we are voting for offices, chairman, vice chairman, clerk. So please give it some deep thought about your role, if it is more than just being a member of the committee.
Do you have descriptions of what each role is responsible for?
There's only one description in the committee handbook on
Okay.
the chairperson.
Okay.
And apparently, from what I read, if the chairperson is not here, the vice chairman takes over. If the chairman is out and the vice chairman's out, the clerk takes over. That's what I perceive as their role.
I wrote that portion of the charter, and it was a deft move on my part to never have a chair pro tem. If you have a 5-member committee and you get as far as you don't even have the clerk in your presence, then you don't have a quorum, so
Yeah.
you don't hold the meeting.
Yeah,
Because it was chaotic.
I bet.
We have never had a clerk,
No,
right?
No.
But that's why I added it, and it got voted on, and it's part of the charter now. So the description is just as Martha suggested. It's so that you don't run out of people who could possibly chair a meeting. Because otherwise you have this really strange process of voting for a chair pro tem, but it's kind of difficult to open the meeting because there's nobody sitting in the chair.
Okay.
here's the committee handbook.
I have
It's
it,
very
yep.
small.
I have it.
Paul, would you make your recommendation?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Roman.
Thank you, Roman.
Thank you.